Alright, hello, welcome. My name is Shaina. I'm an astrologer, tarot reader, and certified hater on the internet. So yeah, this is another one of those negative videos, but I think it's going to be really fun. Alright, to get the advertisements out of the way, I sell birth chart readings. My website will be linked down below. I have an astrology TikTok where I post lots of content, and I have a personal Instagram. Also, I'm opening up my email. That'll be down below if you want to send me any sort of advice questions that you may have for me. Sort of like an Ask an Astrologer kind of segment on the newspaper. Ask a Capricorn, ask a dumb girl. A lovely friend of mine deeply inspired this video. She left this comment, and I was like, you know what if I combine this and just create the world's worst birth chart? I love talking shit. This is not really going to be a deep, philosophical of the mind sort of progressing astrology forward video. But in my mind it is progressing astrology forward because we should be allowed to have our opinions and have our biases, because I always say if you don't have your bias in astrology, then what do you have? Then you're just a textbook at that point, I'm not trying to say if you have one of these placements or a few of these placements that you're doomed and there's no hope or blah blah blah. This is really just kicking fun at things. I have an extreme bias. Most people probably wouldn't pick these. You'd probably pick something incredibly different. That's the fun in it, okay? So if you have your thoughts on what would be your worst sun, moon, and rising, or what would you not like to have, I'd be super curious. Leave them down below, because honestly, probably a lot of people would pick a lot of my placements that I have natally, and it's understandable. There's pros and cons to everything, so don't get so sensitive about the video. Yeah. Whatever. Also, and this is a big thing that I'm preferencing for all the astro heads out there, no, this is not astrologically possible. This is a video where I get to play God, I get to play the goddess here, I get to, pull the strings, and I get to create the horror story of a birth chart that I want. I understand that if you have a Gemini rising, it's impossible for you to have a Pisces sun in the first house, or I understand if you're a Pisces sun, it's impossible for you to have a Gemini Mercury. Okay, I fully understand how these things work. I fully understand how these things move, but if I was creating the world's worst birth chart within the confines of this world, it just wouldn't be as fun. I'd be repeating a lot of placements. I'd be repeating a lot of houses, and that's not what I'm trying to do here. Yeah, this is astrologically impossible. Nobody ever in the entire history of the world, or at least this earth as we know it, will be able to have this chart or has had this chart. So, that should show that, it's okay, guys. Shit can't be that bad. Nobody could have this chart I'm about to make. We're all okay, But enough of this. I'm gonna get into it. I'm really excited to show you my perfectly coiffed, just horror story of a chart. So let's go. All right, of course, we're gonna start out with the sun. Everybody is going to be very surprised by what I'm about to say, except for the people that know me and know how I do astrology. Then you're probably not going to be too surprised. But for the world's worst birth chart, for the sun that I would least like to have, I chose Leo. I know, and in little astrology terms, Leo is considered the home ruler of the sun, so astrologers consider that to be a very good placement. And yeah, I will say every Leo loves being a Leo. Even if somebody doesn't give a fuck about astrology, if they know they're a Leo, they will say it with pride and say, I am a Leo. But from the outside looking in, these people are really self-unaware. I think of Leo as Sagittarius with no taste, or even as a less rambunctious Aries. It seem to be distracted by love a lot, which isn't even something that I'm that against, but I mean, come on, this is coming from a Capricorn. And yeah, Leos like being Leos, but I would never want to be that person. I would never want to be that Leo. I realize that I really don't have that many Leos close to me, and I think it's just because I see them as really basic. I see them as really boring, but they want a lot of attention for doing nothing, for not doing anything special. A lot of times, especially famous Leo suns feel like like government placed experiments to where they were like, we have cultivated this person to be famous. You know, and it's like they're kind of hollow. Is there anything in there? What I see is like the main thing about Leos, it's that it's literally just like they have to love being them, because if they don't love being them, then they have no other personality trait, you know? Like, I think it's good to have some Leo energy in your chart, or else you wouldn't give a shit about yourself, and it's important to take up space. But I don't want my main characteristic to be like, I'm a Leo. You know? Yeah, it's good, like, they're doing their own thing and they're happy to be doing it, but are they really happy to be doing their own thing deep down? No, they're self-conscious about it. And I just don't want to live my whole life being that self-conscious, being that aware of how much I'm being seen, you know, be that, you know, invested in my pride. Man, I just feel like Leos are really concerned with the wrong things, but it's just kind of like that, how I summarized it at the beginning, that's it, whatever, you know? And then I decided to put it in the second house. The second house is the house of Taurus. I am not against Taurus suns. That's not what I'm saying here. Love Taurus suns. I would be honored to be one. However, with the sun in the second house, if you're like, I never hear people talk about this placement. Yeah, it's because you don't need to. I literally lived for years with somebody with a second house sun, and I left that situation feeling like I knew just as much about second house suns as I did going in, because it really is as shallow as it seems. Like, you really look down and you see the shallow ass concrete 1 foot pool. Like, you know what I mean? You know, the second house is the house of money, of material things, and it also, I find, if you have a lot of second house stuff, especially a second house sun, you wind up doing a lot of manual labor. Do I look like I want to be doing a lot of manual labor? I mean, I'm not lazy. I'll do things for myself. I'm a Capricorn. But do I want that to be like what my life revolves around? No. Also, I feel like if you have a second house sun, your dad is kind of a curmudgeon, kind of a stick in the mud, and we don't want that. Your dad was probably also somebody who, like, didn't let you use things because of the cost. Like, money just becomes such a focal point of your life with a second house sun. I don't think these are bad people. It's just not what I want to spend my life wrapped up in, is money, finances. Yeah, these people can have good taste, but most of the time they're too wrapped up in having such a lack mindset that they will never get the things that they want, because their mind frame is just so stuck on, I don't have this, I don't have enough, I don't have enough, I need more, I need more. And you'd think that these people are good at managing money, but they're not. I think of like 2nd, 6th, and 10th as like the level of like worker you get to be. Like the 10th is the boss and the owner. The 6th house can be like the assistant manager, you know, maybe small business owner. And then the 2nd house is just like the employee. It's just like the grunt. The 2nd house is literally the grunt. I don't want to do that. I'm a Capricorn. So yeah, these people are really fixed. Both of these signs are really fixed, stuck in their ways, don't want to grow. You'll get stuck eating like mac and cheese for the rest of your life, eating the same foods that you did when you were little, thinking the same things that you did when you were little. And I know a lot of people are surprised thinking I'd pick something spooky like the 8th house or the 12th house, but the people that I know with these placements, they have a lot of interest to them. They have a lot of depth. It's a very soul-searching placement. And yeah, it's not like those are the ideal placements to have your sun, but the sun in the 2nd house is not talked about for a reason, and that reason is because it's boring. Do I even have to tell you what moon I'm gonna pick? Do I? No, I'm picking Cancer moon. Of course I'm picking Cancer moon. I talk about this all the time. And yeah, this is going to surprise, again, a lot of typical astrologers, because the moon does rule Cancer, so it's considered to be a really good placement for it. But with Cancer moon, it's just like, my God, are you a little bitch? Like, my God, are you a little butthurt bitch? My God, are you a little whiny crybaby? And also your taste is really, really bad, really, really lame. You're way, way, way too sheltered. You're not exposed to the world at all. You couldn't handle something like this video. You couldn't handle the fun and things. You can't poke fun at anything. You can't have a sense of humor. You can't make fun of anything. You can't be made fun of at all. You take everything so seriously, and it's not even in like an esoteric way. It's just like in a Taylor Swift kind of like, wow, she's so deep because she has just grocery store problems. That's not a real phrase, but you know what I mean. Grocery store problems, just like mass marketing problems, like, you know, and you make them out to be this big ordeal, and there's no taste, there's no flavor, there's no pizzazz to Cancer moon. They're just not fun. You know, they get stuck just sitting at home being dumpy losers. and just eat their feelings all the time and are too scared to go out and do anything, don't want to work, but not in like a hot, sexy, like Leo, Gemini way. I did just say something nice about Leos, where they're like, bitch, I don't work because I get my nails done and I'm a socialite and I'm funny and I will roast you and I will make funny TikToks and I will do this, that. No, just like in a way of where it's like, they're just a potato. They're just a lump of potatoes. They want to be put in a dark, warm bag and tucked away in the back of your closet, and that's where they belong. This is going to be the one I'm the meanest with. Anyways, so the house that I chose it, and I was thinking about doing the 6th house, but I'll talk more about why I did it later on. And because it is Cancer moon, I actually chose the 1st house. And I don't think having a 1st house moon is even that bad, or this makes bad people, but I just, again, as a Capricorn moon in the 7th house, I didn't mean to do this, but Cancer moon in the 1st house is literally my opposite moon placement. I just feel like having a 1st house moon, it's like so vulnerable. In one way, it's nice that you're authentic. In another way, you're always showing your hand. You're always showing your cards. You don't really have much for yourself, I feel like, if that makes sense. Like, the moon is a very personal planet, and I feel like it should kind of be yours. You should kind of own it. It should be yours to know and to discover. And I feel like having it in the 1st house would just kind of put it too much on display, that it would feel too much like everybody could come and touch it, everybody could poke fun of it, everybody can see it. And again, that just also creates even more of a hypersensitivity with that Cancer moon. So it's just like, I feel like if you're a Cancer moon in the 1st house, your entire world would just be run by your topical sensitivities, and it would just be completely overruled by that, and that's it. And that just sounds exhausting. That sounds really tiring. And it's not that there isn't depth to having a 1st house moon, because there is a lot of emotional depth to these people. You know, these people like poetry and things like that I don't give a fuck about. For the rising that I don't want, again, if you know me, you know that I'm gonna say this one. Virgo rising. I've always said that the only rising worse to have than Cancer is Virgo, and I still stand behind that. Y'all are just nerds. Y'all are just dweeby. Y'all are just dorky. You usually, you know, have weird sharp faces, weird beady eyes, weird noses that go out. There's, you know, something awkward about your stomach, something awkward about the way that you stand, just something awkward about the way that you dance, something awkward about the way that you move, and you're just so hell-bent on things that don't matter, like little tiny details of things. And it's like, that's cool that you're smart for the most part, but I also don't want a Gemini midheaven, and a lot of Virgo risings have Gemini midheavens, and thinking about it, that's also the midheaven that I wouldn't want. And I love Gemini energy, but with Gemini midheaven, it's just like you're forever going to be indecisive about what you want to do with your job. You're forever going to be jumping from job to job to job. You're going to be gossiped about in your job and your workplace. People are going to see you as a gossip. People are going to see you as two-faced in the workplace. You're not going to be very trustworthy. Maybe you do well in a podcast, but then again, you're a Virgo rising, so you're boring, so you haven't like gone out and explored the world. Not really approachable either, kind of standoffish. The bottom line here is like, you're just gonna be a little dweeby geeky nerd. And especially if you're a Leo sun, and especially if you're a Cancer moon, that sounds like hell. You know, that just sounds like the recipe for white bread. Just the #1 person that thinks they're really doing the thing and they ain't doing nothing. Oh, this is a recipe for a person that just psychoanalyzes every little thing that's said about them, obsesses about it, gets completely distracted about it, cares so much about ranking, cares so much about hierarchy, cares so much about themselves, how they feel, and is so unaware of how they're affecting everybody else, so unaware of how they're being seen by everybody else. And yeah, Virgo risings rarely ever have fashion taste, rarely ever have style. Just always having to be the servant. You know, you just want to run errands all day, and then you don't want to travel because you're a Virgo rising and you're like scared of your routine being changed. Like, there's just no sense of adventure. For Mercury, this one's really different. We're going in a very different direction here, finally. For Mercury, I chose Pisces, because Because if I had to pick the stupidest placement, like the stupidest Mercury sign, I would pick Pisces. Y'all don't know what's going on like 90% of the time. You live in your own delusions, like you fully convince yourself that that's how the situation went down, but it's just so far-fetched and so far away from the reality of what's going on. It's insane. And also there is a high likelihood of a drug dependency. There is also a high likelihood of like neglect in the realm of education. Yes, there is like a high level for artistic pursuits, which is nice, but what also bothers me about Mercury and Pisces is they can't just say something like, oh, she has pretty blue hair, her waving cerulean hair was sweeping down the back of her neck and flowing off her buttocks, or they'll just say nonsense, or they're just like so drugged up and so delusional that you don't know what they're talking about like almost all the time. Time management is completely not a thing with Mercury and Pisces. You can be pretty incapable sometimes. So as far as the house that this goes in, this was really hard for me to choose. I don't think there's too many bad house placements as far as Mercury goes, but I wound up choosing Mercury in the 9th house. And this is kind of the lightest one that I say. I thought about doing 6th house and 8th house as well, but I'll get on to later as to why I'm not. I know somebody with this placement, and I picked it because they said growing up and their entire life, they basically always been told they were stupid. And when you're told that you're stupid, that's going to get in your mind, even if you're not stupid. The person that I knew with this placement was one of the smartest people ever. But just because the 3rd house is the house of your lower education, and having Mercury in the 9th house, you don't get to the stuff in your 9th house until you're older and you're off at school and you're grown up. In lower education and throughout childhood, you're always going to be told that you're stupid, and you're just going to kind of put yourself in that framework and that frame of mind, and you're just going to constantly be telling yourself that. And I feel like that can really put you in a place where you really underrepresent yourself and almost like under-respect yourself and under kind of give yourself the mental space that you're allowed. And it's like, how else can we confuse Mercury and Pisces? Oh, I know. By putting it in another house that squares. And Sagittarius rules the 9th house. Pisces and Sagittarius square. And also the two harshest placements for Mercury to have, considered by astrologers, is Pisces and Sagittarius, which I do actually agree with. This is like the only one I fully agree with. And yeah, sometimes Mercury and Sagittarius can be a real bastard. Again, it's really hard for them to focus on the daily things because it's opposite Gemini. Like if Virgo's the to-do list, Gemini's doing it, you know? And so with this Pisces Sagittarius combination, it's like you'll just constantly have these big dreams, start new projects, start new hobbies, and then always leave them half finished. So you'll also wind up losing a bunch of money and wasting a bunch of money, which your 2nd house sun will be really mad at. Yeah, how do you go about life with Mercury and Pisces in the 9th house? Do you just kind of float through it? You'd have to, right? If you have this placement, I'm asking. Venus. Okay, so for Venus, I chose Capricorn. I really think that Venus and Capricorns are major stick in the muds with the other side of the stick up their ass. These people also are really robotic. With Capricorn Venus, there is no flair. There is no style. It's just like, a lot of time, these people will talk like this, and they are very conscious about how they come across and how they are seen on an external level. Am I professional? Am I hireable? Oh, I need to make sure. Oh, is this outfit a little bit too weird? Oh, is this outfit a little bit unsophisticated? Like this is the creative energy is Venus. And with Venus and Capricorn, there's just a real lack of creativity. And when they do try to be creative, it just winds up looking really clowny and awkward and off and wrong. And also I find they have really bad taste in partners. If they're not ugly, they go for really ugly people. Capricorn is kind of like that planet that gives you like hard times and stiffness. And so I think it really is hard to feel beautiful with the Capricorn Venus. And purposefully, it's like, even if you are beautiful, you're gonna made to feel not, or it's going to be really hard for you to be beautiful because you're a Capricorn Venus, and that's like your main obstacle in your way of life is not being beautiful, not being pretty. And I know this sounds really shallow, but Venus is a shallow placement. And there can be a lot of fear of doing fun things, of exploring your youth in any way. Also with Venus in Capricorn, it's like you've always wanted a lot of commitment from a very young age, like the other Earth Venuses, but because it's in Capricorn, it's gonna take you forever to be able to get that, and that sucks. Okay, this is a side note. A lot of Venus and Capricorns actually aren't as committed as you'd think they are. A lot of them are actually polyamorous or non-monogamous, which I was when my Venus was progressing through Capricorn, which I find is because nobody's deserving of their love fully and they're not deserving of somebody else's love fully. And I'm not, that's not me trying to talk shit about polyamory or non-monogamy at all. I'm not against it at all. But where it's coming from with the Venus in Capricorn, I think can sometimes be a very sad, harsh place. I also chose one planet to be retrograde, like what would be my worst planet that I would not want retrograde, and I chose Venus. It just further drills in that point of Capricorn, and the people that have it just have the worst self-confidence, and most of the time it's for no reason, but they really let how ugly they think they are completely get in their way. And it's also that other thing of like, oh, not feeling like they deserve love, but they will give their love completely openly and freely to everybody else, even people that don't deserve it, and then be fine with nothing in return. I also think this position denotes a lot of bullying, like not like light bullying, but like a lot of like harsh bullying that will literally make you have to move or change schools or like be really detrimental to your confidence and be really detrimental to your life just in general. And then the house that I chose, again, this one might be a little bit surprising, but I chose the 7th house. This would be like the #1 planet that I do not want in the 7th house, especially with it being in Capricorn, because I kind of already mentioned that sort of like super hyper self-awareness, like containment, and then adding Venus in the 7th house will only make that like cemented in even more. These people are so aware of gender roles, so aware of like what is proper, you know, so aware of how to act and manners. And I know as me saying that, probably 7th house Venuses are like, you could use some manners, Shaina, and you're right, I could. You feel very incomplete without having a partner constantly. This is a placement that I think is one of the hardest to be single, and I think there's a lot to love and to be learned in being single, and so I don't think it's something that I would want to like be dreading or being uncomfortable with. It's just really hard to be alone in general with Venus in the 7th house. Like it goes even as far as like it's hard for you to like go to the grocery store alone. It's uncomfortable for you to eat alone. Like that's things that have to be learned, and especially with Venus in Capricorn, you're going to have to do that stuff a lot. You're going to have to be alone a lot. So then putting it in the 7th house where you yearn for this like constant connection, constant relationship, but yet you're forced to be single all the time because your Venus is in Capricorn retrograde. Like, man, I just fucked y'all over. I just played Puppet Master, totally fucked you over with this placement. You know, it's literally that song of in High School Musical, Venus in the 7th house is that song of like, no, stick to the stuff you know. It's like, don't break the status quo, and it can be a very conservative placement as well. Not in their ideals, because that's like Mercury and that kind of stuff, but in the way that they present themselves. And as a Venus in Sagittarius, fuck it, dude, dress however you want, dress goofy, dress silly. Yeah, I just feel like, I'm like tired talking about it, because I'm like, why does this stuff matter? Why does it matter? Let's move on. Do I even need to tell y'all what Mars I'm gonna pick? You know I'm picking Mars in Virgo. Pew, 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 pew. You know, I hopped on my little laptop, wrote it all out, and wrote, first one I'm feeling in Cancer moon. What did I fill right after that? Virgo Mars. And I get it. There can be good stuff to this placement. Here's what I'm tired of hearing about Virgos. Because here's the thing. Virgo Mars is your prudes, 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 your prudes. I won't hear anything about it. You don't have to defend it. I have heard every single defense of Virgo Mars. I don't need to hear it anymore. I get what you guys say. I get what you guys think. I get how you view yourself. It will not change how I view you. Sorry that I don't want to be in the middle of sex all like literally physically shaking because I'm so nervous. Like, that's embarrassing. And also, I would like to point out that there is a difference between being a prude and being a whore, okay? Being a whore is a funny description. Being a whore has to do with how many people you've slept with. Being a prude has to do with what you will do while you're sleeping with somebody. Okay? So cool, Virgo Mars. Yeah, y'all have a huge ability to be prostitutes because it's an exchange of, you know, sex for money. That's very earth sign, especially very Virgo. It's the servant. Virgo Mars is super likely to be a sex worker. Okay? Yeah, you can be a whore. You can sleep with a bunch of people, right? But what you will do while you're sleeping with these people is prudish. You're very strict in the lines and the boundaries that you have in sex. Who does what does this, and just in general, you're very nervous. There's not much passion. There's not much lust at all. And they just, it's so funny whenever people like defend this placement, because they'll also be like, Virgo Marses want to satisfy you. Like, if they can't do something, they will look it up and research it and find out analytically how to do it. And I'm just like, oh, yeah, that's so sexy. That's so hot. Looking up and analyzing sex. It's so just all up here, and that there's like a lot of times a huge disconnect to the physical. There's just also a really low sex drive with this placement. A lot of times these people are very judgmental of porn as well. Also with the way that Virgo Mars gets mad, it's like and it's like, ugh. It's so annoying. It's so petty. It's so trivial. And then the house placement that I chose for this one is the 12th house. Now, I didn't want to dump everything in the 12th house because that's easy to do. It gets a bad rep. But I really did want to pick what I think is the worst placements to have in the 12th house. And one of those is Mars, because it's impossible to stand up for yourself, because they're not even passive aggressive. They're just passive. They let everybody step all over them, like even literally. Again, there's like a complete disconnect to your sex drive, a complete disconnect to your sexuality. You'll pretty much only kind of live in your sexual fantasies and not go after who it is and what it is that you want. This is a big like fan fiction placement. And yeah, I did just talk shit about fan fiction. I don't get it. I don't have a 12th house Mars. Everybody that I know with 12th house Mars is kind of like, hello, wake up, come after me, do something, be passionate, go after what you want, do it, go after the thing, set goals. And 12th house Mars is like, nah. Oh, you want to use my car? Yeah, go ahead. Oh, you crashed my car? Oh, okay, I guess I don't have a car for the next 5 years. Guess there's nothing I can do about the fact that I don't have a car. Like, it's just so passive in every single way, and I just can't deal with it. So yeah, sorry person that I'm giving this world's worth birth chart to. 12th house Mars. Alright, so now we're getting to the outer planets. I'll try to go faster because every video I make is so damn long. I can talk for fucking ever. I really thought this one wasn't going to be as long. I'm stupid. So for Jupiter, I chose Jupiter in Taurus. And with every Jupiter placement, like, they're all good. Like, how do you choose a bad Jupiter? I can see good in all of these, but I chose Jupiter in Taurus. It's just kind of like you're wrapped up in the wrong things. Like, you get good luck as far as, like, you can be, you know, maybe born with money, but that's kind of how it goes. It's like you've been given a lot of comforts, you've been given a lot of money. I feel like this can be kind of like rich kid syndrome. And we all don't like rich kid syndrome, you know? And I'm not even saying like all rich kids have rich kid syndrome, but I think Jupiter and Taurus can kind of give that lackadaisicalness, that kind of expecting money, never having to work for it. And it's just like, out of all the gifts that you can kind of receive from Jupiter, I feel like, yeah, money would probably be what a lot of people choose, but I just kind of feel like that's the most trivial. I'd rather have so many other things. But Jupiter in Taurus is like, you get to kind of do nothing. You kind of just get it. You just kind of get money, you get physical things. You just probably don't really have much of a care for the metaphysical. You're probably even a little bit greedy. You're probably incredibly hedonistic in the very negative sense of the term. And it's not like indulgent. I think it's fine to be indulgent, but I think that Jupiter and Taurus will go to, like I said, hedonistic, and their just values will kind of be on financial and material matters. Like, I feel like Jupiter and Taurus is actually the monopoly man, you know? And then for the house placement, this was the other other one that I put in the 12th house. Like with Jupiter in the 12th house, the luck does not come until like you are at your wit's end. You are at like the darkest pit of despair. Your like darkest, deepest hole. You're like the most rock bottom of rock bottom. Like you've been to rock bottom 3 times still, right? And then it's like at that very last second when you're like maybe even close to ending it all, like completely over it all, done with it. That's when Jupiter will come in and be like, oh, here, I guess I should give you some luck now. And it's like, oh, thanks. And especially with Jupiter in Taurus in the 12th house, God, that's so lazy. You are so fucking lazy. I'm such a Capricorn that there's a lot of beratement of laziness. And I think it's good to be like chill and to like relax and to enjoy yourself. But Jupiter in the 12th house in Taurus will not want to do anything for themselves, will never want to get up, will just have such a problem being stuck in doing nothing, like paralyzed by doing nothing. But also Jupiter in the 12th house makes you like really, really erratic with your emotional life. Sometimes it can relate to like manic episode, depressive episode, manic episode, depressive episode. So you're like adding that energy and then take it back to that Cancer moon in the 1st house. And it's just like, oh my God, that sucks. That sucks. That sucks. Next one is Saturn. And this one was hard because they all almost suck. Like I could definitely make an argument for pretty much I can make an argument for every single Saturn placement as to why it's the worst. I settled on Saturn in Aries. This is a placement that I have, and it's why I'm stupid. It's why I can just be a fucktard sometimes. I'm just like thinking about all these examples of all the stupid stuff that I've done. And it's stupid little trivial things. I think this also makes for sometimes bad drivers because it's just like, I'm gonna do this now. You know, it's not bad drivers in the sense of like, oh, I'm so scared. Like that's not the kind of driver I am at all. I'm like overconfident. I'm like, this'll work. Yeah, let's do this. Fuck it. Like I'm like, I have no depth perception, but let's try to parallel park here. You know, whoa, this car's coming at me really fast. I'm gonna turn out anyways. Sometimes you really have to talk to me like I'm a child and like teach me these very elementary things. Like you have to think of Aries as being the first sign of the zodiac. So with Saturn in Aries, it's just kind of like you weren't taught just some baseline common sense things. With Saturn in Aries, you have such an incredible, insane lack of common sense. It's like, I will keep a bunch of papers by a space heater and not think about the fact that that causes a fire because I don't understand how things work. Because Saturn is how you deal with your problems, by the way. Saturn is how it's your discipline. It's like the father figure. Saturn in Aries also causes a lot of anger issues, causes a lot of like explosive anger, frustration things, a lot of immaturity, a lot of childlike behavior. Also, it can represent the father, so you just have a mad dad that's just angry all the time, and he's mad at you for stupid things like you knocked over a glass of water, and he's gonna absolutely lose his top, and it's gonna be the end of the world because you have a Saturn in Aries, so that's how he responds to you. And then the house placement that I chose is the 6th house. You know, the 6th house is a house that I would say you don't want anything in. I can make a case for literally every single planet as to why you wouldn't want it in the 6th house, except maybe Jupiter. I think Jupiter is okay in the 6th house, but I was like, let me just pick one that it's like, you put that in there and you're fucked. So I picked Saturn. First of all, everybody with Saturn in the 6th house that I've ever done a reading for or ever talked to, their dad is evil. Their dad is so mean, so cruel, so angry. They don't even need to have a Saturn in Aries, but they will just be evil, mean, and have these ridiculous expectations and just be like on you all the time, but while being an asshole and while not really teaching you anything. Like it just creates the typical like shitty dad. Like not in like the perverse, gross sexual way, like it can, but more of just like the strict, mean, fucking just says awful things to you too, like so verbally abusive, so emotionally abusive, just shitty, just a shitty, mean dad. And what's also hard about Saturn in the 6th house is that it's just like constant health issues. It's just like constant problems, constant issues with your daily routine, constant problems with your day-to-day life. Like, you're always running into these little issues because the 6th house is your daily routine, your day-to-day life. Saturn is problems, restrictions. And so it's just like, you're always having health problems that fuck you up. Like, nobody wants to deal with health problems their entire life. And Saturn in the 6th house, it's like, that's your biggest hurdle to get over and deal with. I'm so thankful I don't have this placement. Oh my God. Uranus. For Uranus, I chose, and this was another battle. I was fighting between Taurus and Leo for the longest time because Taurus and Leo are so fixed in their ways, because Uranus is the planet of progression, the planet of moving forward, of social revolution and social change. But then I really thought about it. And I was like, do you know what's worse than being so set in your ways? Having no ways. So I chose Uranus in Libra because I just feel like, even though this isn't considered a bad placement, the more I thought about it, the more I was like, these are just the most like not really giving a fuck kind of energy. Like, for your revolution, for your, yeah, I'm gonna move forward, I'm gonna be outside the box, I'm gonna be unique, I'm gonna be different. Putting it in Libra is like this social conformity energy. It's like no Uranus in Libra would really be pushing anything forward one way or the other. They would just be so moderate and so just not really care about anything, that it's, again, it's like, what's worse than having super strong stuck in your way views? It's like not having any at all. Where's the respect for that? Not having any opinions one way or another about anything, about any sort of social change. That most of this generation probably just fell into the background. They just kind of stuck to social conformity and stuck to the status quo, you know? And then for the house placement, I chose the 3rd house because I find that people with Uranus in the 3rd house have so much trouble fitting their mind into society because they think so differently, and this can be a little bit of like a genius energy. People can be very smart and understand how things work and, you know, take things apart and put it back together and all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, first of all, this represents a lot of chaos and a lot of moving early in childhood, because the 3rd house is the house of the neighborhood and the community, and Uranus adds a lot of chaos and changeability. And so I feel like you're constantly moving, constantly switching schools. So I feel like there's that loss of stability from the beginning. So it's just kind of like in your life, you're going to be creating chaos just for chaos concern and just for chaos purposes. And it's going to be hard for you to settle down anywhere. Your mind can't relax. It's always going a million miles an hour, but it also cannot concentrate on anything for a long period of time at all. It cannot start something. It cannot finish thing. It's just super erratic from one thing to another, on to the next. Usually Uranus in the 3rd house also will denote some kind of speech issue, speech impediment, dyslexia, trouble reading, trouble learning. This always denotes a lot of trouble with schooling and the school system. The reason why they have trouble with the school system is because they cannot plan. They cannot complete an assignment for the life of them sometimes. So you're probably just kind of got all this stuff going on in your brain and working all which way, and it's never coming to fruition. It's never being finished. It's never been given its kind of like light to shine. So then it's like, well, fuck, what can you do? It's a little mean, but I just find people with this placement have a lot of troubles, honestly, and I feel like if you had this placement, you'd probably kind of agree. Next up is Neptune. I chose Neptune in Capricorn. I wanted to purposely choose a placement because Neptune moves so slowly. That's within the realm of kind of boomer to Gen Alpha, so we've kind of seen it play out. So I chose Neptune in Capricorn, which is the placement that millennials have. This is why, and I have this placement too, this is why none of us can adult. This is why, you know, there's this big kind of mysterious cloud around adulting and growing up and getting older. But I think it even goes farther than that, because I think with Neptune and Capricorn, it's like you weren't really able to be a kid, but you're also struggling to be an adult. I'm like a middle child between millennial and Gen Z, but I think it's why millennials have grown up and now everything's too expensive. I would really just point my finger to Neptune and Capricorn. You know, again, it has to do with that, like, how do we grow up thing? Well, we can't afford a house. We work all the time, but we don't get the right amount of pay. And also the fact that millennials are coined as lazy by boomers is definitely due to their Neptune and Capricorn, because Neptune is delusions. Neptune is kind of everything we're not sure about. And it also is that Pisces energy of kind of, which can be kind of lazy. And so with Capricorn, with Neptune and Capricorn, it's put that label on it that you're a bad worker, that you can't do this, you can't do that, you're not good at this, you're not good at that, you're lazy, you don't do anything. And a lot of millennials do a lot of things, but they always will just have that insecurity in them. This is literally where the phrase adulting came from. So with the house placement for Neptune, I am actually going to choose Neptune in the 4th house. And it's hard for me to choose this because I tend to really like these people like a lot. I've had a lot of these people in my life, and I think they're such like beautiful, spiritual, philosophical, deep people. Like, however, and this is a big however, this placement denotes a lot of lack. This placement denotes a lot of neglect, a lot of family neglect. This is the house of family, the house of home, the house of your roots. And having Neptune in there, it also can create a very addictive personality. It's very easy to fall into drug dependencies. It's hard to just do things lightly. But these people have to rely on people outside of their family to take care of them constantly. Like, if you have this placement, you better hope that you have something in your 3rd or 11th house, making it so that you have a lot of connections and know a lot of people that will buy you food and take you to school and do things for you, because your family probably won't. This can also be people that come from a very split family, you know, step siblings, half siblings, never married parents, some kind of broken home. And again, if at one point in your life you probably will experience homelessness, not to scare anybody out there with Neptune in the 4th house, but even if you're not literally homeless, you're maybe couch surfing. This is a real like punk kind of placement. These people also wind up having to be dependent on somebody their whole lives, while also struggling to find people to be dependent on, if that makes sense. Like, there was a key thing where there was nobody in their life for them to be fully dependent on them being taken care of, and so they wind up the rest of their life searching for that dependency elsewhere. Also, I find that these people can be very manipulative as well, because they don't really have a good support system. So they kind of have to manipulate their way through life to make people support them and to have people give them things. This is like the typical broke musician placement that plays for cash on the side of the street and sleeps at their girlfriend's house, and their girlfriend buys them everything, and then they just get broken up with all the time because they don't have any prospects and they don't do anything for themselves kind of situation. So yeah, there can be this weird selfishness and owed thing because they weren't given that original kind of nuclear family. And yeah, and who wants to come from a super dysfunctional family? Sometimes they're just so stuck in lack that that's what they know and were raised with, that that's kind of the cycle that they forever get stuck on. So if you have this placement, you have to flip the switch in your head that says, like, I do not have lack anymore. I have talents, I have creativity, I have potential, because that's what Neptune is. Talents, creativity, and potential. And feel like you can pick yourself up and move forward. I didn't mean for this to be a motivational thing, but this is the placement that I have the most respect for out of all of them. But I mean, it's not really fun either, you know? Last up is Pluto. I chose Pluto in Virgo. Y'all, I did not mean to put so many earth signs. I love earth signs. I literally have so much earth in my chart. I have nothing against us. I love us. I don't know why I did it so dirty. I guess that is just how I dealt the cards. Like, what the fuck? That's because this is the boomer generation planet that like makes them a stick in the mud, that makes them like really care about rules and like really care about these little things that like don't really matter. I chose a lot of Virgo energy. I even tried to keep it low on Virgo energy, and I still chose a lot of Virgo energy because it's just a lot of control issues. You have control issues. People have exerted a lot of negative control onto you, and it's just this hyperfixation and nitpickiness. Oh, I'm wrong. Well, you're wrong. We're all wrong except for me. I'm right, and I make the most sense, even though I absolutely make no sense at all because my Pluto's in Virgo, but I think I make the most sense to me, even though I'm completely nonsensical to everybody else. But I'm right. You're wrong. Like, you're wrong, and that's why I should be in power. Oh yeah, well, you're wrong. That's why I should be in power. Oh yeah, well, you're wrong. I want power. that power. Like, I just feel like that's Pluto and Virgo. Also, if I choose one planet to be intercepted, it's Pluto. Having an intercepted Pluto is like not having access to that powerhouse, to that place of you that takes up space, to that place of you that says like, I am valid, I can do this, I can step out, and I have control over myself, and I have autonomy. With Pluto intercepted, you do not feel like you have autonomy. You do not feel like you have control over yourself. You feel like that was taken away from you at a young age. You do not feel like you're allowed to take up space. You do not feel like, you know, you're even valid sometimes with Pluto intercepted. That you just will never be able to have your personal power to be able to be like, I don't want to do this and I don't have to. You just become a victim to your circumstances always. And you just perpetually put yourself in that position sometimes to be a victim of your circumstances. And so it's really sad, Pluto intercepted, honestly. And then to make it worse, that's right, everyone, I put it in the 8th house. I didn't put anything else in the 8th house because I was like, if I'm putting Pluto in the 8th house, that just covers it all. I talked about this placement in my first video. It's major cycles of abuse, major cycles of trauma, major cycles of manipulation, major cycles of just every negative, toxic, bad thing, and especially with it in Virgo intercepted. And I know I've been like, haha, hee, these placements suck. But this one's really, really, really bad. And it's really, really, really scary. Like, if you somehow get out of your childhood unscathed, then the first relationship you get into will just be the most abusive, toxic, awful thing ever. It's really awful and really depressing. And so if you have this placement, my heart goes out to you. I think it goes to show that a lot of like females in the boomer generation have this, that we're like, people that don't talk about their trauma, people that don't speak up about it, but just kind of it continuously happens to them and they just kind of continuously suffer through it day in and day out. And the cycle just forever continues because it's intercepted and they don't feel like they can stand up to it. And it's in the 8th house, so it's like some kind of ancient ancestral trauma that was like placed to them for like no real reason other than the fact that me playing God was absolutely cruel and evil and gave you this placement. Now that I'm like, oh my God, I'm playing God, I would just get rid of this placement entirely. Nobody deserves this. But yes, that is me creating the world's worst birth chart. So here it is. I know it is astrologically impossible, but I am God, and this is the hell that I have created. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know your world's worst birth chart down below. Even if you just want to put the sun, moon, and rising or whatever it is, I'd be super interested. I have an astrology TikTok. I sell birth chart readings, and I have an Instagram. And yeah, thank you for watching. All right. Bye.